In Python, strings are objects, just like everything is an object. We're going to take a little bit of time and look at what this means, because this is not what people are used to who have been programming in other programming languages. But in Python, the everything is an object paradigm has particular impact on how we operate on strings. And also, it's a little bit different than it was in Python 2. Even though strings were objects in Python 2, they weren't fully first-class objects in the sense that they are in Python 3. And the interface is a lot more consistent in Python 3, but it also means that it's significantly different than it was in Python 2. So if you're familiar with Python 2, this is worth paying attention to just a little bit. So here we have a string. This is a string. And the value of that, of course, is the string. This is a string. Now, if we assign it to a variable, now we have a variable, and if we just get the value of that variable, it says this is a string. Now, of course, in Python, a variable is just a reference to an object. So I can operate on that string by saying s.upper, and we get the uppercase of the string. And here's the thing that surprises people sometimes, is I can do the same thing just on the string. I can say this is a string, in quotes like that, dot upper. And that will give me the uppercase if this is a string, because the string itself is an object. The significant impact here is the use of the format method. The format method is very often called on a bare string, so to speak. So it's very common to do something like this in Python. This is a string, and put in a format, and close the quotes and say dot format and 42, like that. And the result will be this is a string 42, because what we've done is we've actually operated on the string using the format method and replaced the token in the string with the formatted number 42. And this is very common to do. Older versions of Python, it was common to do something like this is a string %d, and then use the percent operator and say 42 like that. And that worked exactly the same way, because you weren't using the dot notation to access a method. Instead, it was overloading this percent operator to do exactly the same thing. Now, it's worth noting that in Python 3, that percent notation is considered obsolescent, which means that in future versions of Python, that will no longer be supported. So this is a good time to get used to using the dot format method. And in fact, the format method is a lot more powerful and a lot more consistent in its syntax. The syntax used in the old percent style string replacement was borrowed from C, and it's 40 years old. And while it certainly works, and it's certainly familiar to anybody with a background in the C programming language, it's not as consistent or as powerful as the new format operator in the format language. So we'll be talking more about that in detail later on in this chapter. For now, what's important to note is that a string is an object, and a variable containing a string is really just a variable that contains a reference to a string object. So everything that you can do on that string object, you can do on the string itself, because the string itself is the string object.